We have now learned all the different types of equations that you will encounter that have one variable in them, and so we are going to be reviewing in preparation for the semester test. So the first type of equations that we learned at the beginning of the year was what we call one-step equations. So in order to solve a one-step equation, you're simply going to isolate, which means get by itself, the variable using what we call inverse operations. So inverse operations are the operations that undo one another. For example, addition undoes subtraction. Subtraction undoes addition. Multiplication undoes division, and division undoes multiplication. So those are called inverse operations of one another. So if we look at the first example here, x plus 5 equals 11, in order to get the x by itself, we have to get rid of this 5, which means we're undoing addition. So to undo addition, we're going to subtract, and we're going to subtract what's being added to x, which is a 5. And remember, to keep an equation balanced, what you do to one side of the equation, you must do to the other side as well. So I'm going to subtract 5 on the right side. So positive 5 and a negative 5 cancel, leaving me with x by itself. And the value of x is 11 minus 5, which is 6. I know I'm done once I have my variable by itself. So in this one, we're undoing the subtraction of 2 by adding 2 to both sides. So the negative 2 and positive 2 cancel. X equals 12 plus 2, which is 14. Now I know these are really simple, and some of these you could probably do in your head, but remember, it's really important for you to show all your work, or you will never get all of the credit, even though you get the correct answer. You must show your work. When you have a number beside a variable like 3x, that means multiplication is occurring. That means 3 times x. So to undo multiplication, we're going to use division. So we're going to divide by 3, and again, we must do so on the other side as well. So 3 divided by 3 is 1, so those cancel, leaving me with 1x, which is the same thing as just x. And 15 divided by 3 is 5. When you have a fraction bar, remember that means division. So this is x divided by 4. So to undo division, we use multiplication. What is x being divided by? 4. So that's what we're going to multiply by. And what we do to one side, we have to do to the other. So I'm multiplying by 4 on both sides of the equation. So this 4 in the numerator cancels out that 4 in the denominator, leaving me with x. And 5 times 4 is 20. So there are all your one-step equations. Remember to show your work. The second type of equations that we're going to look at are called two-step equations, because it has two things you have to do in order to isolate the variable. Remember to always undo the addition or subtraction first, and then you'll undo the multiplication or division. So in this example, we want to get x by itself. We have to get rid of the 3 and the 2. The 2 is being added. The 3 is being multiplied. So we undo addition first. So we undo the addition of 2 by subtracting 2, and what we do to one side, we have to do to the other. So these positive and negative 2's cancel, leaving me with 3x. 8 minus 2 is 6. So now I'm left with multiplication. I undo that using division. I'm dividing by the 3 that x was being multiplied by, and I do that on both sides. 3 divided by 3 is 1, so I'm left with 1x, which is the same thing as just x, and 6 divided by 3 is 2. On the next example, we need to undo the subtraction of 4 first by adding 4 to both sides. So we have x divided by 5 left on the left side, and 6 plus 4 is 10. Remember, this is division, so to undo division, we're multiplying by what was being divided by, which is a 5. So we're multiplying by 5. Remember to multiply by 5 on the right side as well. So this 5 cancels out that 5, leaving me with x, and 10 times 5 is 50. The next thing we learned this semester was how to use what we call the distributive property. You're going to use the distributive property anytime you have a set of parentheses that you need to get rid of. And so to get rid of the parentheses, you always just multiply the number outside the parentheses by every single term inside. Remember to be very careful with your signs. When you multiply a negative times a positive, you always get a negative answer. But when you multiply a negative times a negative, that turns to being positive. So on this first one, we're distributing the 3 times the x times the 2. It's multiplication when you distribute. So 3 times x is 3x. 3 times 2 is positive 6, so make sure you put the plus sign between the 3x and the 6. On the second one, we're distributing a negative 2 times the x and times the 4 that has a negative sign in front of it, so that's a negative 4. So negative 2 times x is simply negative 2x. Negative 2 times negative 4, remember a negative times a negative is positive, so that becomes positive 8. So I'm going to put plus 8. Now in this one, we just have a negative sign in front of the parentheses, but remember that's the same thing as a negative 1 in front of the parentheses. These mean the same exact thing. So we're distributing the negative 1 times both of these terms, and remember a negative times a negative becomes positive. So negative 1 times negative 3x becomes positive 3x, and negative 1 times positive 5 is negative 5. So I'll have a subtraction there. So then we solved equations that involve the distributive property. So before we can undo the addition and subtraction and undo the multiplication and division, we have to get rid of the parentheses using the distributive property. Notice these distributive properties are just exactly like the examples we just did. It's just now they become equations because we have something that they're set equal to. So our answers here did not look like our answers up here because these are not equations. So you won't get x equals a number on these. These didn't have equal signs, but these do. So the first thing we're going to do is distribute just like we did up here. So we know when we distribute that 3, we get 3x plus 6, just like we did up here. But now that equals 21. So now this equation looks like these equations up here, and we solve them exactly the same way. So we're going to undo the addition of 6 by subtracting 6 from both sides. The positive and negative 6 cancel, leaving me with 3x. And 3x equals 21 minus 6, which is 15. Now we undo the multiplication using division, so we're going to divide both sides by 3. And so we get x equals 15 divided by 3, which is 5. On the second one, just like we did up here, we're distributing the negative 2. Negative 2 times x is negative 2x, and negative 2 times negative 4 is positive 8. We're going to undo the addition of 8 by subtracting 8 from both sides. The positive and negative 8 cancel, leaving me with negative 2x equals 4 minus 8, which is negative 4. We're going to divide both sides by negative 2 to undo that multiplication. And the negative 2's cancel, leaving me with x. And a negative divided by negative is positive. Negative 4 divided by negative 2 is positive 2. And on the last one, remember that negative sign is the same thing as a negative 1. So that's what we're distributing, is the negative 1. So we get a positive 3x when we multiply negative 1 times negative 3x. And negative 1 times positive 5 is negative 5. Equal to negative 11. We're going to undo the subtraction of 5 by adding 5 to both sides. So 3x equals negative 11 plus 5 is negative 6. Undo multiplication using division. Divide both sides by 3. So we get x equals negative 6 divided by 3, which is negative 2. All right, the next sheet of notes, we start off by combining like terms. Notice these do not have equal signs. These are not equations. So again, your answer will not be x equals a number. We're just simply going to combine like terms. So if two terms have the exact same variable part, remember you can simply add their coefficients, and that's the number in front of the variables. So since both of these have an x on them, I know my answer will be x. It's just how many x's do I have? Well, in my calculator, I can put negative 2 plus 6 and find that that equals 4. So my answer is 4x, and that's it. There's nothing to solve. On these both have a y on them, so I know I'm going to have a y. It's just how many do I have? So in my calculator, I would put 3 minus 7, and that's negative 4. So I have negative 4y. The numbers can also be combined. Negative 6 plus 4 is what I'd put in my calculator, and I get negative 2, so I put minus 2. And that's all I can do. Those are not like terms. I cannot combine those together. So once I learned how to combine like terms, now I can do that within an equation that has like terms. But remember, like terms must be on the same side of the equal sign. So I cannot add this 4 with that 18. They're not on the same side. So don't try to combine terms that are on opposite sides. So on the left side of the equation, these both have an x. So I can combine those. And remember, we already did that. Negative 2 plus 6 is positive 4. So that's 4x equals 24. Now I solve it just like I did in the first set of examples. This is a one-step equation. I'm going to undo that multiplication using division. We're dividing both sides by 4, and we get x equals 24 divided by 4, which is 6. Remember, like terms are on the same side. So I add the 3y and the negative 7y just like I did up here and get negative 4y. And I can add the negative 6 and the 4, but not the 18. It's on the other side. And negative 6 plus 4 is negative 2. So on the other side, I have this 18. So now this is a two-step equation. I first undo the subtraction using addition. So I'm going to add 2 to both sides. So now I have negative 4y equals 18 plus 2, which is 20. Then I can undo that multiplication using division, divide both sides by negative 4, and so y equals negative 5. 20 divided by negative 4 is negative 5. So then we put that together. The distributive property and combining like terms both would show up in equations, so we have to know what to do first. So the first thing you're going to do is always get rid of the parentheses by distributing first. After you distribute and get rid of the parentheses, then you can combine your like terms. Remember, they have to be on the same side of the equal sign. And then you can use your inverse operations to get the variable by itself. So with both of these, the first thing I'm going to do is get rid of the parentheses by distributing. So 2 times x is 2x. 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. Bring down the rest of your equation. So minus 4x equals negative 16. Remember, it's very important that you show every step exactly the way I've showed you. So now I can look for like terms. Well, I see I have a 2x and a negative 4x on this side. So I can combine those by putting in my calculator 2 minus 4, which is negative 2. So I have negative 2x. Bring down the negative 6 and your equal sign and the negative 16. Now I have a two-step equation. I'm going to undo the subtraction of 6 by adding 6 to both sides. So now I have negative 2x, don't lose that negative sign, equals negative 16 plus 6 is negative 10. Undo multiplication using division, so I'm going to divide both sides by negative 2. And so x equals negative 10 divided by negative 2 is positive 5. On this equation, I'm going to distribute. Don't forget, a negative times a negative is positive. Negative 4 times negative 2x is positive 8x. Negative 4 times positive 7 is negative 28. Bring down all of the rest of the equation. Don't skip that. Now I can look for like terms. Remember, like terms have to be on the same side. So I can combine this 8x with this 2x. 8 plus 2 is 10, so that's 10x. I can also combine the negative 28 and the negative 8. Negative 28 minus 8 is negative 36. Bring down that negative 56. Now I can undo the subtraction by adding 36 to both sides. So the negative and the positive cancel, leaving me with 10x on the left side. Negative 56 plus 36 is negative 20. Undo the multiplication by dividing both sides by 10, and I get x equals negative 20 divided by 10, which is negative 2. The next thing we looked at is when we have a variable on opposite sides of the equal sign. So here we have an x over here and an x over here. Remember, we cannot combine those. Those are not like terms.